Oh well, I got for you 6 decks that have recently 5-0'd in Pioneer that I think are sweet. Let's get into each one. We're gonna start right out of the gate with Citadel with Collect a Company. Now this deck has, of course, Mayhem Devil, Woe Strider, Sifter, so it has a lot of the key pieces and Priest. Now there's definitely different brews of this list, right? Some lists play Tyvar, but if you do, I would cut some like 2 copies of Bolus's Citadel. So it's up to you how you want to build this constructed deck. But I do think this is actually a pretty good list right out of the gate. You could, like I said, you could fine tune it to how you want to play it. But I do think the list is pretty sweet overall. And it addresses some bad matchups. It's kind of weird that it has status and statue in the sideboard, but it does get enchantments and artifacts, so that's kind of reasonable. Menchia is good for combo decks. Clotus is a graveyard hate piece. We have a Liberator for artifacts and enchantment destruction. Decay for small threats as well as push. This could hit, of course, non-creature spells, but then we have 3 Thought Seizes for the control matchup to bring in. Get the removal out of the way for Bolus's Citadel or the counter out of the way for Collect a Company. So there's a lot here that I think is kind of sweet. So if you want to try any of these lists, all the links are in the description. And I'm going to do something a little bit differently. Let me know down in the comments what deck you think is your favorite, and I will consider playing it for the most favorite for video. So, except for the next deck we're going to be talking about, because it's going to be featured on a poll probably at some point with new NIV Supreme. So let's get into the next list. So NIV Delight recently got a 5-0 with, it's not a Yorion build, so that's kind of intriguing. It's a Jengatha build instead. So this actual list is what I took as a foundation for my Bring to Light that I put on the poll for competitive next season. I just added the new NIV Supreme, and I think I cut the Sunslayer out of the list, but it is sweet that it has Sunslayer, it has Caryatid, it has Valky, which is a good card. Griffweaver Dead Vanity is pretty good with the Bring to Light package. We have Slaughter Games main board, so that way we can deal with combo strategies. We have Extinction Event for mono green. We have Kolgan's Command as kind of a catch-all. Vanishing Verse is a decent way to remove Old Girl Troll against mono green. We have Growth Spiral to ramp us into our Bring to Light. We have a little bit more early interaction like Decay and Dreadbore, which are great targets for NIV Reborn. Then we have Binding as one of the premier ways of removing just about anything from the board. So sideboard, we have Dovin's Veto for control. It's great because it's, like I said, it's a 2-colored spell. We have Lavinia as a way to fight decks that may be casting like mono green that cast a lot of big spells but not have the same amount of lands to actually cast it. We have Rest in Peace as a way to fight Greasefang. We have Thought Erasure as our way to make our opponent discard, because like I said, it is 2-colored, which works quite well with Reborn. Then we, of course, we have Deafening Clarion as our sweeper of choice, because again, it's 2-colored. We have Kemba as a way to fight storm style decks like Phoenix, stuff like that, where they cast a lot of non-creature spells in a given turn. Also pretty decent against Lotus Field. And then we have Scarab God as a mid-range threat that's a little bit harder to remove. So against a black base removal deck that has a lot of exile type effects, this could be a solid piece. It also kind of can act like Graveyard Hate, because it does have the ability to pay 2 and a blue and a black, I believe, exile a card. But overall, this list looks pretty sweet. Like I said, I'm going to probably be featuring it at some point on the competitive series with the brand new NIV Supreme. But this deck looks pretty sweet if you like NIV Mizzet. Let's get into the next list. Now, the next list is a deck that I actually am interested in. Of course, this is my playstyle. I love Ramp, period. It is interesting to see that they're playing the Elf package with Caryatid to get us into Rejuvenator early to get our lands so we can Cavalier to a Tarka. So I like the fact that this deck does have a decent package, Oath and Nissa makes a lot of sense. That's a way to dig for our big pieces if we need them, or to get our lands if we need them early in the game. And we don't really care about the second clause since our only planeswalker, well, is not really colorless. Cares about colors. So there's that. I'm not sure if I would actually be playing Emrakul. I understand you want one in the board for control, but Ulamog in the board also seems weird. Leveler, Titan of Industry, 3 Thought-Knot Seers, which makes perfect sense with Stonebrain for the combo matchups. Then we have Sky Lasher for the Spirit matchup, so that makes decent sense. And we have Damping Sphere. Now, we only have a Tarka and Ugin for aggro matchups. And then I guess we technically could bring in Titan of Industry and cut the Emrakul against aggro because of gaining 5 life and make a 7/7 and a 4/4 is actually maybe enough to push it there. And this deck kind of addresses a lot of the bad matchups. It is interesting to see like there's not actually Wrath, but then again, there's not a lot of red's mana. There's one single mountain and a Haven to cast as a Tarka. So there's not a lot of red. So it makes perfect sense that this deck can't really afford to have a red sweeper in the board or in the main. So deck looks fun. I am definitely intrigued by trying this list out. Let's get into the next list. Next is Jund Midrange with Jangata as a companion with the Troxa Transmogrify. So we have Volcanic Spite as a way to dig for our Transmogrifies, put a Troxa to the bottom. Thoughtseize for Disruption, Fatal Push for Disruption. Luca is a decent mid-range payoff that can help us ramp into a Troxa. And then, of course, we have a Careful Cultivation, which is one of the best 2-drops to be able to get Transmogrify down the next turn. So turn 3 Troxa, which is pretty decent. Fable the Mirror Breaker, of course, is the best card in Pioneer. Then we have Zeki's Chariot, which is a reasonable threat for a mid-range package. So it's kind of a decent deck right here. We have 2 Duresses for the control matchup. Volley for Greasefang, Mono White, Spirits. We have Damping Sphere as a way to fight through. I don't necessarily think you would bring this in against Mono Green. There's got to be something that I'm thinking of, because Phoenix is kind of meh as well. I'm not sure. We have Bankbuster for the matchups where it's going to go grindy, right? Against Rakdos midrange, against control. Terror Thunder is a decent exile-based removal spell for artifacts, enchantments, or anything else. Unlicensed Hearse is a decent graveyard hate. Event is pretty good against aggro as well as against mono green, since everything they play is usually odd costed. So this deck looks pretty tooled up. If you are interested in cheating and Atroxa into play, this is probably one of the better ways of doing it. So let's get into the next list. Next is a deck that's been going around. Abzan Elves. I'm not really sure where the white, I guess the white is for the Archon of Emeria. But it's really Golgari Elves, where we cast a bunch of dorks early in the game, and we try to get up to as many creatures as we can. We can win with the Shaman of the Pact, or we could just tap all of our elves, cast the 2020 Imperiosaur. Works quite well. Court of Calling, Collected Company. We have essentially 28 creatures, which is basically what most people want to play anyways. When it comes to Collected Company decks, 28 is usually what you go for. I try to go for 30. But we have 20 lands, which is pretty on par. Sideboard-wise, we have Sanctuary for the Rakdos mid-range matchup. Thoughtseize for control, as to get the sweepers out of your opponent's hand. Knight of Dusk Shadows, probably for the Angels matchup, where the life gain matters. Ooze for graveyard hate. Jailer also could be decent graveyard hate. Also prevents permits and graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. So it has a little bit of anti-flashback mechanic. But Archon of Emeria is for Lotus Field, so we stop them from casting multiple untapped base effects and draw. Narcomentia for combo. Then we have Vivian Monsters Advocate as a way we could bring in for grinding matchups where we expect our elves to be killed. And we can put that alongside Sanctuary for a very good mid-range / finishing package. So that is Elves with Imperiosaur and Pioneer. Now, last but not least, we have a Golta and Maverick list with 3 Olivias, 2 Champion of Dusk, Harvester Epicure, which allows us to loot our cards in the graveyard. Like I said, we have a decent Vampire package with Olivia, which is kind of sweet, so we can get Golta down, and even if Olivia dies, Golta still stays around because it's a legendary Vampire. We have 4 Sorin, 4 Pushes, and Thoughtseize for cheap interaction. Go for the throat as well. We have Fable the Mirror Breaker, just because, like, again, it's the best card in the format. So why not play a couple copies? It seems pretty good. We have Duress for the control matchup. Pithy Needle to name Karn. We have Go Blink as a way to fight through mid-range. We have Crippling Fear as a way to wrap the board away while keeping our vampires intact. Then we have Kalitas as a way to fight through aggressive aggro lists. The life gain is quite relevant there. Then we have Leyline of the Void as a way to fight through Greasefang, graveyard-based strategies. This also kind of helps with exiling creatures like Arclight Phoenix that are in play. You just, when you kill it, it gets exiled. You get a 2/2 zombie, so it's also pretty decent there. So that is, I don't know, this is what? Every color but blue? But this looks like it's just strictly 2-colored. Yeah, so the green and the white aren't technically here, quote unquote, but, and if you ever don't find Sorin with it, of course, you have enough blood token enablers to be able to throw them away. So like I said, at the beginning of the video, or midway through the video, whatever deck you guys like the most out of these lists, let me know down in the comments, and I will consider making a video for the most deck list. I might put up a poll, check it out on my community page, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things to help support my channel, and I appreciate it very much. And until next time, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day.